So here are 10 tips on how you could be more safe about fire in your shop. The reason I make this, there's been a lot of really sad videos and posts of people's entire shops burning to the ground from a battery charger, or we don't know what happened, or you know they wake up in the morning and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and everything's on fire. So that's really sad, and I don't want that to happen in my shop, and I don't want it to happen in your shop. So let's talk about some ways we can prevent that. And first, we're going to talk about fire extinguishers. So I have a couple fire extinguishers in the shop. I didn't put one over there yet, but I have 2 fire extinguishers up here by the door. I've got a really giant one over here and another one mounted on the wall over here. And these signs, check this out. These are really cool. So I've got 2 fire extinguishers at the front of the shop, and I know it's required in like commercial situations. This is a personal shop, but what if I'm welding and my neighbor walks in and notices I'm on fire and he doesn't know where a fire extinguisher is? Well, things like this help. So I put this, I believe the top of this is at 6 foot, so it's high, it's easy to see, and check this out. This one glows in the dark. So, tip number 1, have fire extinguishers in your shop. Really simple. Tip number 2, I don't have anything to show you because I don't do this, fuel storage. Keep propane tanks, gas tanks, fuel tanks, diesel tanks, kerosene tanks, whatever. If it's flammable, just try to keep it out of your shop. That's pretty basic, but that could lead to a very bad situation. Number 3, clean. I don't have a wood shop, but wood shops make me nervous when there's large piles of sawdust everywhere. But I do have a shop where I work on everything. So sometimes I'm cutting wood, sometimes I'm cutting metal. Because of that, I try to clean up after myself, especially when I go from cutting wood to cutting metal. So just basic cleanliness. You don't want metal dust around. Unplug everything each night. So I'll show you, before I go into the house at night, I just kind of look down the wall. And obviously it's fine that my air conditioner is plugged in, but I've got, I check air conditioner, I make sure the plug on my workbench is unplugged, I make sure this fourplex is unplugged. I have some smart plugs around the shop that are set to turn off every night at 11 o'clock p.m. So in this case, I have my Ryobi, whatever, my lithium battery chargers on this smart plug. It's just an Amazon smart plug, and I've set it in the Alexa app to shut off every night at 11 o'clock. So I know that these batteries won't be charging at night when I'm not out here. Next up, oily rags. Specifically, and I don't do that much woodwork, but linseed oil can spontaneously combust. There's a really cool video that a guy just did. I'll link to it below. He did a test where there was 18 different situations of linseed oil on rags, and they actually caught on fire within 8 hours. They rose up in temperature and spontaneously combusted in his shop. It was a really cool video. I'll link below to that. Oily rags, you don't really want those laying around. They do sell oily rag cans. They're I don't know, $100. I'll put a link below, but they're red, and they have a step where the lid opens and you put oily rags in there. I don't deal with linseed oil that much. Mine's more like motor oil, differential fluid, stuff like that. So I kind of went for an in-between solution. So this is what I usually use, which is a normal trash can on a retired office chair wheels, which works pretty good. But after watching the linseed oil video, I am retiring this trash can. I'm gonna put it in my basement, and I got a metal trash can with a lid, and that's gonna be my new trash can, so I don't have to worry about let's say something did catch on fire, hopefully it would at least be contained, if not, maybe be snuffed out by having a lid on it. A cool down period after welding and grinding. So whenever I'm welding, I'm always working out here at night because we have things like day jobs. So I usually come in from the shop at 11 o'clock and I usually stop welding about 30 minutes to an hour before I go inside the house. That way everything has a chance to cool down, my welder cools off, and I put everything away and I sweep up a little bit before I go inside. Storage area for more flammable type things. So I built this mechanical room, if you will, of like a contained area for stuff like my battery charge. Now, in a perfect world, you would have your lithium batteries inside of, I think they call it a coffin, which is like a metal box with like fiberboard or cement board inside of it that has a lid that closes that you charge your batteries in. I don't have anything like that yet, but I do have everything that's kind of flammable in one spot, and I can check it on my way out of the shop. So I make sure my air compressor's off, and I make sure that this outlet turns off, even though it turns off itself. Sometimes if I go to bed or if I go in the house early, let's say it's 10 o'clock and the switch hasn't turned off yet, I'll turn it off because I'm that OCD. And then the last two are probably the hardest if your shop is already built, but it's gonna be trim material choice, which in my case, this is wood trim, but all of my trim around the shop is 1x6 PVC, and PVC is inherently not flammable. I also kept it close to the ground, and it is all siliconed up against the ground, and it's touching the ground, so like sparks can't go under the trim and sit on the framing behind, maybe smolder, I don't know. And then last up, wall material choice. So I didn't want metal on my walls of the shop. That was a personal choice. I felt like metal might be kind of loud. I didn't want to do plywood. There's people that have plywood shops that have been that way for decades, and that's great. But I didn't want to be inside of a wooden box welding, and that's just not, it's just too much anxiety for me. So I chose 5/8 fire rated sheetrock. It's not that much more expensive, but it is more labor intensive. So I had my sheetrock hung for me, and it did cost me more just because sheetrock is sheetrock and it takes more work than putting up big slabs of metal. But if you're concerned about fire prevention, which if you made it this far in the video, you probably are, I prefer don't choose raw plywood exposed. And if you do have raw plywood just on your shop walls, maybe think about covering it up with like pole barn steel. So like my ceiling is just your normal 3-foot wide ribbed pole barn pieces. So anyways, that is 10 fire prevention tips that you can use in your shop, and hopefully we can all work in our shops for a long time to come, and I don't have to hear more stories about shops burning down from fires. So hope this helped. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. That way we keep making more content. So you go outside and work on something.